Hey, welcome back to another Rest, Eat, Move podcast. Today we're going to talk about two things that I think we interconnect but are completely different, and it's lifespan versus health span. The big fella's in the studio in person. I don't have to do the Zoom thing with Floyd jumping on your lap and
Floyd loves to be
getting
on
the lights.
podcast.
But we're going to talk about lifespan versus health span. I think it's a very important conversation. I think we get so fixated on the numbers. How long are we going to live? What's the average life expectancy? What do the charts say? When the art of all of this has more to do with the health span. And I think what we'll get into is most people really care about their health more than how long are they going to live. But we've been, I think, from stats and graphs and books and articles, we're so fixated on the numbers. And there's more to the numbers. So today we're going to talk about lifespan versus health span. What's your thoughts on lifespan versus health span?
It's interesting. Like, I turn 67 next month.
Jeez.
And you just, sometimes you think about it. In 30 years, I'll be 97. 40 years, I'd be 107. The longest human being to date is 122. What's possible from an aging standpoint. So I've never really thought much about aging until like probably the last few years. What's the next 10 years going to be? What's the next 20 years? And again, my contemporaries, we do a lot of stuff together, and it's just a conversation. Now we're not talking about meds and surgeries and stuff like that. We're just talking about thriving. How long do you want to live? What does it look like? What's the aging process? And everybody's aging. We were playing pickleball the other day, and we were talking about this and that, and we're all aging. But it's again back to, am I trying to thrive or just survive? And that's what we talked about today: is how do you want to age?
So we can go on our experiences, but when you think about, let's just say, your grandpa or your dad, my grandpa, at 67, I thought at 67, grandpa was pretty old. Do you remember your grandpa at 67? How long did your grandpa live?
my dog Floyd is named after my grandfather.
Yeah.
And then that's how we got up to Douglas Lake, was from my grandparents. And I remember my grandpa Floyd, again, my dad was an only child, so we were the golden child grandkids, my sister Paul and my brother Nick. But we'd go up there, and I remember him chopping wood one time, and he's 61. And they were bragging like, my gosh, can you believe how he's chopping wood out? And I think to myself, but at the time they thought that was really incredible that at 61 he's actually out chopping wood. So yeah, it's different now. I think people are a lot more, obviously more active. There's a lot more education about nutrition and how to take care of yourself. And you're seeing that with professional athletes are participating longer and what they're doing differently. But I'm seeing more and more, the 50 is now the 30, and the list goes on. But you're seeing more of that than ever before because people have been investing in their health at a lot earlier.
How old did your grandfather live?
Both my grandfather and my dad lived to 78.
Same age?
Same age.
So in 10 years from 68 to 78, I think there's a two-thing. There's a lifespan. I talk about this a lot in the presentation. 78's above, maybe the life expectancy is closer to 85 today, but 77, 78 for males has been the number for a long time. Lifespan checks the box. Health span, though, is where the rubber meets the road. And for the 10 years I remember, from 68 to 78, health wasn't very good for Grandpa. I don't know about for great-grandpa Floyd. But I think that's the opportunity that we have for this vibrant aging, this difference between how long am I going to live and what is actually my health.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not always connected. And if you live to 122, they're probably pretty connected. Maybe you're just genetically gifted, but I think once you get over 90, 100, and you still feel pretty good, there's some health components, not just genetic components.
Yeah, and we were talking about one of our close friend, Dan Bender, and all the guys that we hang out with. But his dad, Harry Bender, lived to 98, and Harry had, I would say, pretty vibrant health until the last year. I look at my grandfather or my father, their health was suffering for probably 3 years before they died. So you step back and say, what do you want this to look like? You and I both talk about this. Number one is, yes, the question is, how long do you think you're going to live? And then people will throw a number out. We do this when we do our presentations. And then we follow up that was, how long do you want to live? And then what do you want it to look like? And then what are you willing to change or invest and whatever? But it's just a mindset that I never thought of that. I don't want to live to a certain number and then basically you've lost your health. So that's a different conversation. And I don't think people have enough of that. What do you want this to look like at the end? And as we're getting older, for me, I still want to play. And so I want to invest and play and participate and hang out with your kids and Kristen's kids and maybe their kids' kids. Who knows? I'd like to play with my grandkids, skiing and golfing or do whatever, pickleball with them. Those are the things that I'm looking forward to as they get older, but that's part of, thriving versus just surviving.
So if you think you're going to live to 85 and then you follow up that answer with, I want to live to 85, there's a couple of things that could be great. It could be completely aligned, or you may think at 85 plus, it's not possible to thrive. So why would you want to live too far past that? I see that a lot we've talked about a couple clients that have come in and they just want to live to 75. That's their only goal. And so it can be limited because that want is only based on the beliefs and the vision that you have. So if you think my family, this is how they do it and this is normal and you can't have any control, I think the want is always going to be limited. We talk about what do you want? What's possible in your life? It's hard to want something if you don't believe it's possible.
I think the other thing too, this, but you got to create some awareness of what is possible and who are you surrounding yourself with.
Sure.
And so sometimes I see different people, different sports, different activities, whatever, and I'm like, wow, that's possible. And then you're like, okay, but if you're not exposed to that, like a 75-year-old, if the person, he or she is not feeling good at age 65 and 70, I remember my mom used to say to me, and my mom did really well her last handful of years of her life, but she had a really unhealthy lifestyle for, probably
she had some pretty strict box of beliefs.
Oh, for sure. And then
arthritis.
She kept saying to me, I remember she's complaining, we called her the bionic woman. She had her ankle fused, knee replaced, hips replaced, and you just wait till you get older. I remember when Mom and I we got engaged. We had a pool party over at Skidama's. And I remember all of them telling me, because I was into bodybuilding then, and wait till you get, those muscles are going to turn to fat. And I still look back, I'm like, they were all 40. They were in like their mid 40s. And they kept telling me like, your muscles are going to turn to fat when you get to our age. But if you're not exposed to that,
or if you're exposed to the maybe pessimistic, negative,
sure. Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yeah. I remember, and your grandma, God rest her soul, I love it. But she would always come in and say, hey, just aging, it sucks.
No fun. Yeah, I hear that a lot. I think we've all said it, like I'm getting older or can't do. I don't know. I don't think I never felt aging sucks. Like I was getting my hair cut and was talking to my barber, and I truly sometimes feel like I'm 18. Like my consciousness is 18. And so if it wasn't, there's old souls and there's people that are different consciousness or mindsets, but I don't know. I'm coaching these third graders. I couldn't imagine just telling them to stretch without stretching with them. I couldn't imagine not getting on the ground and showing them and demonstrating. Now, we all have injuries or setbacks, but I think that's in society. We get into this at some point. At some point, we lose the ability to be young, to have that, I would call it vibrancy, that agelessness where you just feel like.
All you have to do is look up on the internet. When Dan Buettner wrote the Blue Zones, and really it was one of the greatest, and he was studying people around the world that had higher longevity, but also more importantly, thriving. And he was going to these, they're not on meds, They're doing all this stuff, and they're in their late 90s and 100s.
I've seen some of these 90-year-olds, they're
Yeah.
on the ground
Yeah.
sewing.
I'm watching the guy ride a horseback, and he's 103. And I'm watching this guy. I'm like, God, that guy moves like he's 70.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's a bar. Let's raise that bar. And I remember my grandma Strachan, my mom's mom, she lived to, and I thought my mom would live long, but Grandma Strachan lived in age 98. And I remember one time at Christmas, and I was teasing her. I said, Grandma, how tall are you? And she said, I'm 5 foot. I'm thinking, you're not 5 foot. And she goes, oh no, I'm 5 foot. So we measured her and she was 4'8". She had shrunk. But she thought, I said, how old do you feel? She says, I feel like I'm in high school. But she had the same mindset you did. Like, she never complained. She turned us on to oatmeal. She lived in her own house until the end of her life. But she had a different mindset than obviously her.
And genetics play a role. They sure do. I think one of the key things out of this podcast you're going to take away, I do think there's two mindsets in life in general, especially when it comes to Healthspan: investment and insurance. So I think of it two ways. I think our genetics are the insurance, healthcare insurance. We want to protect ourselves from accidents and things out of our control, and do the preventative stuff, colonoscopies and physicals, and that's like spending money in insurance. You're protecting.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of defense. Defense is great. I think the missing part in healthcare is the offense. Offense is not profitable. So if you are riding a horseback at 100, the healthcare system's not making money off of you.
No.
Callie Means and some of these people that you're hearing talk about, being sick is the most profitable thing in our country, being sick. And so when you think about that and you hear some of the terminology like healthcare is not healthcare, it's medical care.
Sick care.
Yeah, and that's in that insurance bucket.
Yeah.
And I think the investment bucket is really our opportunity to really tap in from lifespan to healthspan. Genetics, your insurance, your physicals, that's going to get you to that number that probably is just the number. But if you want to take that number to a different number or that quality to a different quality, that's where the investment piece comes in. And the investment piece is us individually taking the initiative to say, wow, probably if I don't get on the ground, I'm probably going to not be able to get on the ground at some point. If I don't get on that horse, at some point I can't ride the horse.
And I think it is a great point. I think you really want to look at, you want to cover those bases. You want to get your physical.
Sure.
You want to get your colonoscopy. You want to do all these preventative things. And again, they're preventative. But why are we waiting? And then the other thing too, as you just mentioned, is okay, I got that insurance, and that's really what when you wrote incapacity. But now, what am I going to do? And so this is the self-care. What's the self-care look like? So I got this side taken care of.
Most people do, and some people don't, and so that would be an opportunity. But I think the piece that is forgotten is we get so caught up in chronological age, the number, the lifespan. What do the stats say? How long are we going to live? Oh, great, you're at this number. I'll give you one thing before I make this point that I was about to make. You go to the doctor, and if you're over the age of 60, it is a risk factor. Okay?
Yeah.
So what's broken in our system is we get so caught up on these numbers. If I look at you at 60 and I look at Floyd and Gary, same genetics or similar genetics, we can't say that that's just to check the box risk factors. Actually, for cardiovascular disease, it's a 2 point, and you don't want to get to 4 points. So just being over 60 is 2 points. Do you feel that way at 60 when you were 7 years ago?
When we talked about in our podcast a while back about cardiovascular, we had a couple of podcasts on that, and the greatest predictor of thriving is VO2 max, your ability to use oxygen. Okay, so that's part of the whole thing. It's what can you do? Can you get on the floor? When we bring people in and do coaching and retreats and whatever, you open their eyes. Again, you talked about this in your Move podcast, this challenge about self-awareness. You create this self-awareness like, wow, I can't get on the floor very easily, or I can't hang from a bar, or I don't do this activity anymore. So now I'm not thriving as much anymore. I'm just batting down the hatches and say, okay, that's his. And we all have limitations as we get older. But again, it's like, how much do you want your limitations to restrict what you want to do?
You know, as I've gone through aging and injuries and different things, all that stuff, I think we think that the biggest limiting factor is our muscles and our strength. And I think the thing that ages the fastest is also the thing that can age the least amount of speed. And that's your VO2 max and your lung capacity. If you train it, it doesn't really move. But if you don't train it, it will fall off a cliff. And I saw that with Grandpa specifically. Now, it didn't help that in that generation, you're smoking cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't go up a flight of stairs.
Mm-hmm.
You can't walk from the car to the door without catching your breath. Today, I'm going to do meetings. I'll be walking. I got the ear pods in. I'll be doing so many things. I don't even think, I'm never out of breath. And if I am, that's going to be a self-awareness, like something I'm not doing that I could. But back to chronological. That's your age. That's your number. That's genetics. That's what your DNA. Your biological is based on your lifestyle. So again, back to you. You come into the doctor. You're 60. Oh, check the box. They're going to ask you all these questions at 60. What they're not able to do as much is go inward. What's your biological? How are your cells functioning? What are the numbers saying? What's happening from a hormonal standpoint? These are all the biological pieces completely in our control.
And again, like we do know your numbers. And again, there's lots of aging testing now that people get crazy. I'm 65 and I have a body or a mind of a 35-year-old or whatever. I don't know.
But again, that's the problem. We're so fixated on the number.
Correct.
Even when you're trying to test biological, you say, so you can hold it like a badge.
Yeah.
It's same with weight. Oh, my weight's 180.
Yeah.
I don't care if your weight's 180 or 200.
Yeah.
There's a difference inside.
And I think what's exciting, as we get older, is what is possible. I just have that mind. I want to get better. Even though I'm probably not getting better, I'm striving to make improvements. Now, there's certain things I'm not going to get, like you were saying, your challenges, you want to do 15 pull-ups. I can't do 15 pull-ups anymore. I used to be able to pound 15 pull-ups. Can't do it anymore. But I still can do pull-ups.
You could if you spent your whole time.
Maybe, but my point is that a lot of these things don't fall off the cliff that much.
Yeah.
You know, I still can water ski and snow ski and do all that kind of stuff.
You can chop wood. I've seen you do that.
I can chop wood and split wood, and I
don't see the natural light though when you're chopping the wood. It might be a different.
But
piece.
Again, that's what's exciting, that you can age and enjoy. Again, we're all aging, but at the same time, what do you want it to look like, feel like?
So you said you're really interested in growing. It's as simple as life. You either are growing or you're dying. And even when you're aging, which you could say you're dying, you're getting closer, you still can tap into the growth. And that is the biological lifespan piece that I see a lot of people have no awareness of their health span. It's just, it is what it is. It's not what it is though. It's what we do.
Yeah, and again, you take activities like snow skiing. I'm always trying to get better. Snow skiing or pickleball or paddleball or golf is elusive to me sometimes, but those are things, like you said, what do I need to learn? What am I reading? What am I surrounding myself? Who am I talking to? What podcasts am I listening to? So I don't know. I just trying to it keeps you, I think the big thing I try to get my clients, and I have a lot of them, they're young at heart. And that's just hard to instill in people. But once they can see that they can have more vibrant health, have better energy, sleep better, they just don't think they can get that. I have one guy right now, the guy's he had cancer, 47 years old, and he came to see me, and the guy's lost 100 pounds.
Yeah, we talked about him before. It's incredible.
Yeah, and now he wants to do bodybuilding contests. So you think about thriving and just, what that dude's life has completely changed versus if he didn't change anything, what would his life be when he's 57 or 67? Or maybe he wouldn't be around. But I think that's the thing is like, is the growth, it's the heart, it's all that kind of stuff as we age, because we're all aging.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up, I think that biological, chronological, lifespan versus health span, it's prevention versus fixing. It's investment versus just playing defense insurance. And it leads us to this point in our society where we have a huge aging gap. And I always think this is one of the most interesting slides. And you say this all the time. I forget more than I know. We don't always use these slides. We have all these great slides, and it's a very fascinating slide. And really what the slide says is what you do in your 20s, you can do whatever you want to.
You can do anything you want.
Yeah, and you're going to be, you probably won't even notice that much.
Yeah.
Some people do more, but most people don't. And then the 30s, and then we establish these habits in our late 20s, early 30s, and that's what we're going to usually have the rest of our life. And what happens around 40, 50, 60 is a rapid decrease. More medications, less function, less fitness, sleep issues, chronic pain. And the whole point of this aging gap slide is the difference between your dad and you, same age, is a huge gap of health span or quality. And that's what we have control over. And so it's never too late. I think that's always, when you look at this slide, you say, I'm in that valley. I'm at 65 or 55 and I'm medicated and I don't feel very good and I might as well just pack it in. I don't have it. No, you can change it at any point, but it's also to the folks my age. I have some friends that are aging rapidly, and there's a lot of runway left. So I think the aging gap is an amazing thing because you don't really have to decrease like we once thought.
No, we're not. You don't have to decay like that. I think you said this really well in the capacity book, is that the most detrimental age for many people is the decade between age 30 and 40. You're developing a career, you're building a family or whatever, and your self-care is taking a back seat. And then that back seat self-care goes into your 50s and 60s, and now this is just what it is. Reality is you get to say, okay, what if I changed a few things? And the body has you've heard us say this 100 times, the ability to self-heal and self-correct if you do a couple of these things. And that's really what people get excited, such as the guy I just talked about, or the woman that lost a couple of 100 pounds at age 65. The body is amazing if you put it back there, but you have to start with that self-awareness and that belief that I can make these changes.
And we talk about this a lot. The human body and mind are pretty resilient, because I see some folks in what appears to be a lot of pain and they're chugging along. They're content with that. But that could be fine, but it also, I think we tend to just get used to what we're used to.
Yeah, and again, you said this to Grandpa a lot. He always would say, I don't really know what it feels like to feel good, because he probably never really felt that great. So when you can show
there's
people
less motivation to try to feel
you
good.
can show them the sunshine that, hey, and you look at, what, like we can maybe wrap this up about a couple easy steps to help. I think Dan Buettner's thing with, one of the things he says very quickly is, movement's obviously a big deal. We talk about obviously what people eat and drink, but the whole sense of belonging is a big deal. And so you look at friendships, you look at family members, you look at your work or whatever. That's where I think more and more people, they need that sense of belonging. And I remember my father, that was a mistake I talked about, is I remember him talking about onto our living, do you need me? And I'm like, Dad, you're retired, you're good. But the mistake I made with my father is that I didn't bring him in because he didn't feel like he had a purpose as much. And I think when people feel like they have a purpose and sense of belonging, I think that's a huge component too, that has really not as much to do with eating and moving and
and we've seen that with some folks that have retired and haven't had a thing.
They got a thing.
And the next thing, 2-3 years, their health deteriorates because they've lost that. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the big takeaway today, we talk about steps and habits and tricks and tips, and we got those, and we'll have them on the next podcast probably. Today wasn't about that. I think that to leave today, I think the question you should ask yourself is, how long do you think you're going to live? Lifespan. And then the second question is, how long do you want to live? But more importantly, what do you want those years to feel like? What quality do you want? That's going to be your health span. And I think for most folks, if you can really answer both of those questions and they're a close number and you really want to have vibrant health, we're really going to be thinking about growth and development and how do we improve.
You
I
know,
ask my audiences, this is a fascinating thing. I wish sometimes I had more capturing a video. I'm not a huge fan of always flipping open the phone, and I think it's annoying. But sometimes you do want to see these things. And I ask this question, how many of you want to wake up every day and feel amazing? I've never met anyone that doesn't want to feel amazing.
right, right.
And then I ask the question, how many are waking up every day feeling amazing? I would say 1% of my audience. And let's just say it's maybe 20% of society. I think that's probably high.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's mental health, physical health, combination of both. And that's the opportunity. The opportunity is we're not paying attention to the health span because I got work, I got stress, I got
Right.
this. And that's why I talked about the movement challenge in the last podcast. Maybe you're doing it, maybe you're thinking about it. Is sometimes we need to kick ourselves in the pants and say, let's be a little more curious. What is possible? Did I horseback ride before? What if I just kept horseback riding? I don't have to stop.
Mm-hmm.
What if I did a push-up every day? Would I be able to do a push-up when I'm 90? Yeah, probably.
Body weight squat. Yeah.
So we forget, and I think about like my house. If you just kind of like maintain it or look at it, it's like you look at it and it's okay, it stays pretty good. You don't look at it, next thing there's a little water creeping in, there's cobwebs, and things start to decay and break
Yep.
down. You
Yep.
just have to be more aware of it, and it brings you back to your favorite movie of all time. Maybe not your favorite, one of mine, Twins, with
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's a perfect example of genetics, and it's fake. It's a made up movie, but lifestyle, genetics, environment, belonging, purpose. And you got Danny DeVito
Oh, it's so
and
funny.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. So
Let me
today,
share you one last story here. So I was speaking, you've heard this story before, but I was speaking at this conference and we were talking about aging in the Q&A, and I talked about it earlier in the presentation. And so one of the guys asked a question, and he asked about such and such, and should you hormone replacement therapy, and on and on and on. So I said, hey, would you mind sharing, because he asked about aging a little bit. I said, would you mind sharing with the audience what you wrote down and how long you think you're going to live? And he wrote down 72. And he shocked me. I said, how old are you? He said, I'm 68. I said, you think you're only going to live 4 more years? He goes, well, yeah, I got the genetics in the family and this and that. And then we paused for a little bit. And I said, how long do you want to live? He said, I don't know. I said, is there anything you want? He goes, I've been thinking about this, but I love to walk my granddaughter down the aisle. How old is your granddaughter? We went into that. And I said, how long would you have to live to walk your granddaughter down the aisle? Probably close to 85. I said, what are you willing to change? And he had a whole new outlook. Emailed me later. What do I need to do? He's all into it, but he never thought that vision out there. Imagine if you were healthier, so you could walk your granddaughter down the. And now he's got a purpose.
I think the reason why is it's scary to have the self-awareness that right now what I'm doing is going to get me to 72.
Right.
So the scary piece is you got to be self-aware what I'm currently doing is not probably great.
Not going to do it.
So the scary thing isn't living to 85.
No.
The scary thing is, looking in the mirror and saying,
I might have to change something.
Looking at the car and saying, yeah, I haven't taken it to the oil place in a while, but hopefully it
Might have to
gets
change
there.
something here.
But yeah, as we wrap this up, I think a good lesson is how long you think you're going to live, how long you want to live. Yeah, those things are important. But at the end of the day, I just telling everyone out there, we have a lot more control over our health span. We can't control the years. Tomorrow's not a certain, but we can say, if I just do a little bit here and there, those small steps, it leads us to I think, a better health span. And I'm 38 years old. The aging gap piece to me that should wake us all up. I'm seeing my friends at 38, 40 years old that can barely do the things that any 40-year-old should be able to do. 98% of 40-year-olds should be able to do.
Yep.
And then once you forget that that's possible, the next 60 years, you're going to age pretty quickly. So the aging gap is a big deal. Healthspan's a big deal. And I think at the end of the day, it's not about the number. It's about what's going on inside, and that's the lifestyle, the prevention, the habits. Have a great day. We'll see you again next time. Let us know if there's anything we can help with. info@ontargetliving.com. We'll see you again soon.